Facebook is online. YouTube is online.
Gotcha.
This is Andrea Yount. We are preparing for our weekly broadcast on mental health topics. Therapy Thursday is brought to you by Affinity Counseling Services and A Lovely Pause. This is a test.
Affinity Counseling Services is located in Piggott, Arkansas and Kennett, Missouri. We currently have 4 therapists in our office and are taking new clients. To join our sign-up sheet, visit counselingwithaffinity.com. And to find out more, you can call me, Kindred, at 870-324-5122 or 573-840-0440. Thank you.
A Lovely Pause is a local nonprofit created to provide community education, awareness, coping skills, and support for those with PTSD and other trauma-related disorders. It is Sad September, and so we are going to be giving our freebie that is going to talk about depression triggers, and you can sign up to get that and to learn more about how to handle your sadness and depression triggers by signing up at A Lovely Pause, PAUSE.com, or click our Facebook button.
This is a test. Therapy Thursday normalizes discussing mental health topics in a safe, supportive environment because not being normal is normal.
Welcome, everyone, to Therapy Thursday, our weekly installment here at Affinity Counseling Services, where we talk about different mental health topics from a personal and professional perspective. My name is Matthew Yount, lead therapist and president here at Affinity.
I'm Andrea Yount, and I am the co-owner of Affinity, vice president of Affinity, owner of Awaken Yoga Studio and Salon and Tan, and co-chair of A Lovely Pause.
Yeah. And I am Stacy. I am a lead marketer at Affinity Counseling Services through Hive Minds Marketing, and I'm also co-chair at A Lovely Pause.
And behind the camera, as always, and behind the curtain.
Now behind the curtain, yes. No one can see what we're talking about.
She's the Wizard of Oz.
But you are now behind a curtain as well.
The wizard. I love it.
Taking your comments, questions, and concerns, if you have them. Kindred, I am also the office manager at Affinity and the secretary of the board for Lovely Pause.
All right, so we are in a new month. We didn't get to do anything last week.
No, we had a lot going on last week, so we didn't get to do it.
Yeah, a few little potential health issues. Glad you didn't get sick, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, same. And everybody's, better now, so that's good. Yeah.
Good. And yeah, so we just had a lot to catch up on. So it's all right. There's 5 Thursdays in this month. We'll compact the 2 we were going to talk about into today's episode anyway. I think it works better that way. So it's fine. We're starting a new month. So we're talking, this is Sad September.
Yeah, Sad September, a little alliteration. So
Is that what we're going to start doing now? Or are we going to have to start doing alliteration in all of our months?
I think the next few months are going to have some emotional, we're going to emotional.
Baggage? No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, we're gonna personify the months with our emotions. So
Okay.
that's what we're doing.
All right.
We had angry August, sad September. So we will have to see what we do for October. What do you think it's going to be?
I don't know. What is it? Because we haven't planned it yet.
Yes,
Oh, we
have.
did.
Oh, did
yeah,
we?
we have planned
Oh.
all the way to December.
Imagine that. Okay.
Yeah,
We did it.
And it's about.
I was probably in that meeting too.
You
and
were.
don't
You
even
were.
remember.
Yeah, you contributed.
We've actually talked about it a few times.
We
I
have,
think.
yeah.
Glad somebody wrote it down.
yeah, we got that side of it. We're kind of tying into that whole all feelings matter.
Yeah.
That we are going to be talking about more in upcoming events that
Right.
we will be attending.
Good segue.
Yeah. So this weekend we've got the Fall Into Arts Festival.
Oh goodness.
Yep, that's this
Yeah.
Saturday.
This Saturday, and so we're gonna have our one of our local artists, Lindsay Wickham. She's going to be having some paintings on display at the Fallen to Arts Festival.
She'll be at the Opera House.
She will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be at the Opera House.
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't checked that place out, it's beautiful and historic. Very, very cool. And they're going to have a lot of neat things there, a lot of artists, local vendors. And we are going to be talking about or showcasing how art can help with our mental health and processing all of those feels that
Yeah.
we have.
And we'll be in the Delta Fair Parade and dressed as the emotions again.
Yes.
So that's always fun
Oh yeah,
times.
from Inside Out. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
trying to figure out how we're going to get Jack in on this one. I think we figured that out.
Yeah.
So
Is he going to be
Oh.
anger?
no, I think he's just going to be one of the little side characters. All they have to wear, they have like a fro, and so Jack has a fro. And
I was
Yes.
trying to find a Bing Bong costume, and
Yeah.
you cannot find a Bing Bong costume. That would have been hilarious. But
yeah, so
Didn't happen.
he can just be one of the side characters, the ancillary ones. So, but they're usually just like one color and a fro. And I was like, well, we can do that with Jack. That won't be very difficult. And Maddox is going to go ahead and be like the kid that were inside his head.
Yeah.
So he's
Oh.
going to set up on the float.
on the float, yeah.
Yeah.
You wait till you see our float because we're gonna have a float for this parade. So, woo, woo.
We had a float for the last one.
Well, I mean, we didn't have a float for
For
4th of
Piggott?
July.
No,
yeah.
we didn't.
So,
Yeah, and
So
we
you gotta
won
come out to
second
the Delta
place.
Fair.
Yes, yeah, because second place last year, right? And this year we're going for number one.
Yes,
yeah,
we want
we're
that
a little
money.
competitive.
Yeah.
Are you trying to get other people competitive?
They
I
will.
mean, yeah, I feel like we're safe.
I think we're good.
We got a great idea. We're not going to tell you what it is. You have
We
to show
pretty
up
well
to
did.
it.
We
but
just did.
Oh. Yeah, that's true.
see, none of us have any memory.
So adding on to that, we will be set up at the Clay County Fair as well in the exhibit building. You can go in there and find out more information about Affinity, how you get services. You can find out more about A Lovely Paws. We finally got our 501c3 paperwork. So
Yay, that's awesome.
If you have ever donated to Lovely Paws, that 501c3 backdates 27 months. So we're not even that old. So if you have ever donated to us, that is a tax deductible donation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And is the Fall into Arts thing going to be during your yoga class too, or is your yoga class in a different part?
The ladies asked me about that.
Yeah.
It's above, and so I
Oh.
told them that if they wanted to just go ahead and meet me there, we'd just go ahead and do it. And they
Okay.
said they would, so
Cool.
we're just going to go ahead and do it. So
All right, awesome.
Get your yoga on, then
Yeah.
come take in some art.
yeah, it sounds like a nice day to me.
It sounds like an awesome day.
Yeah.
Also, to piggyback on the donation bit for Lovely Paws, so people can donate for and be a tax write off. But we're doing our
The
meat raffle.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
their meat raffle going on right now for A Lovely Paws. So
$200 worth of meat from the
$200
Garcias.
worth of meat. So you can buy raffle tickets right now from me, Stacy, Kindred, Teresa Forrest, Fallon Winscott, Kaylin Conley Harris,
Off
Brenda
your Facebook
Maddox.
page.
Yeah, off our Facebook page. You can send us a message through Lovely Paws. We are selling $200 worth of meat, we're raffling it, raffling $200 worth of meat, and like I said, that's a tax deductible donation.
Sure. Yep.
Yep.
So we'll be putting boxes out in Piggott shortly for donation
Yes,
boxes.
we have
You
boxes
might
to put up
win
next week. So those,
$200 worth of meat.
yeah, and it's your choice of meat too.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a lot going on. I guess might as well jump into it because we just took out about 10 minutes with that introduction. So
That was an
yeah,
introduction.
we'll
It
keep,
was.
we had a lot
going
happening.
on,
Yeah.
So
We do.
All right, so we are moving into Sad September. Last week we were going to talk about what is sadness, and then today was going to be the stages of grief. So we'll just mix those things together here briefly. So when we're making a distinction between sadness and other emotions, obviously emotions are this strange, almost ethereal type of experience that we have that we all can relate to and we all have words for, but it's an experience rather than anything that's actually tangible.
it's very hard to explain it in a way that feels accurate.
Well, because emotions, there's your primary emotions. They're almost like colors. There's primary, and then there's like the secondary, like the things that are mixed together that create these other experiences. And your primary ones are like happy, sad, scared. those are, disgusting. Those are like, or disgust. Those are like your primary emotions, and then you mix those together, and you get these weird amalgamations of other
Right. Well,
emotions.
we just had Angry August, and we talked about how anger is always a secondary emotion. It's always
unless it's righteous anger.
unless it's righteous anger.
Yeah.
But it's usually fear or sadness that's the root of that.
Yes. And so sadness itself is like a primary experience, and it's this experience of being disheartened or down or feeling as though nothing is good. You just feel unhappy, distant, disconnected, and mostly isolated. You almost become completely emotionally and oftentimes physically isolated when you're in a state of sadness. It is like a complete lack of motivation and hope when you are in deep states of sadness.
Yeah, depression, and then depression is that
Depression is the
amplified.
physiological response that comes from that.
And yes, it's that, and then amplified to the point of interfering with your daily life and for long periods of time, or in cyclical patterns, or where it actually affects your ability to relate, have interactions with other people, connect with other people, the negative thoughts of yourself, also the way that it makes you feel physically, fatigue. And so it's like the physical, and it's the all over effects of deep sadness.
And then you get thrown into the mix, which we're moving into today, which is grief. And grief is the experience of loss. It absolutely has sadness encompassed in it, but it has other emotions accompanying that sadness. So it's not just sadness that is grief. Grief is an entire experience. So grief can encompass anger. It can create sensations. It's weird. Grief is weird because there are times within grief where people get really giddy, and like almost manic at times. And so they'll get like these bursts of energy, and they'll feel like they'll be laughing a lot, or it'll seem like there's a heightened state of energy or happiness, but you can tell it's false. You can see that behind it is this intense, like, I have no idea what I'm going to do next, and I'm just trying to mask what it is that I'm feeling
I
right
think
now.
if you've ever been to a funeral, you've probably seen that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Because my kids have been to a few funerals in their life, and we're a very communicative family. And so, like, a lot of times their questions are, why was everybody laughing? Why were there so many people laughing? And my oldest daughter thought that it was so disrespectful. And I was like, no, that's just stages of grief. That's just part of grief. And a lot of times at the funeral, you will see, a lot of times we see people crying and being sad, and showing that. But a lot of times we'll also see people laughing and having a good time right there, standing next to their, loved one that has passed. And that's not neither one is wrong or bad. It's just a different reactions. And, later that person who was crying may be laughing, and the person who was laughing may be just down on their knees crying with sadness. So it's just like this. And I say it's not even cyclical, because it's you go between, it's just random.
No, the roller coaster is a good analogy.
Yeah.
Because most roller coasters are not in a pattern. It's this weird big up, and then a down, then a little up, then a down, and then it's this and then you're all over the place,
Yeah.
and you just basically lose where you're at in space and time, and you're just on this ride at some point that's just grabbed you and has a hold of you. So yeah, grief is an all-encompassing experience that is more than just sadness alone, but definitely has sadness involved. So it's best when we talk about grief. I think we've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. They used to call it the stages of grief. Stages is the wrong word, because stages is an indication that you move from one to the next to the next. And it doesn't work that way. There are multiple experiences that go into grief, but stages is an accurate term. It's more like either waves or phases, but but they're overlapping phases. These phases, they don't go like, well, we're going to start with denial. So you're in denial, and then you leave denial and go into anger. So the stages, the 5 that they typically point out that are in the older models are like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And you definitely have all those experiences, but you don't have them singularly and they don't occur in a bubble. So you have denial, and usually that's the first thing people experience at the very beginning. This can't be real. This can't be happening. It feels like a dream. I don't see how this could be happening. No, you hear people like first off saying like no, no, no. So it's the idea of this can't be occurring, and then people have these different experiences within denial. But at some point, anger starts to come in. Anger starts to come in is usually a response to a powerlessness that you feel. So you feel anger as a response to powerlessness, so you don't feel powerless. You feel like you can try to have some control, something done, and most of the time people turn anger on themselves. Almost inevitably, I don't care how somebody loses somebody, there is almost always a time where a person will turn on themselves thinking, I should have done something. That person could have passed in a way that, like, it could have been natural causes that you saw coming a mile away. And a lot of times people will still go, well, I should have been there more. Or maybe I should have called the doctor. I should have gave him this medication. People always turn these things on themselves because it's their way of trying to feel like they have some influence or control in the world. Because the just overwhelming feeling of powerlessness you have in that moment is scary. People don't like to feel powerless. And it's strange how your mind would rather feel guilt, because guilt is an indication of, okay, I had something to do with this, which means I had some control. We would rather feel that than feel powerless. So it's like it turns this sense of false guilt on you, and then you get angry at yourself. Or then you start blaming other people too, whether it's justified or not. And then your anger becomes your encompassing experience. And then after anger, you start to experience more of the sense of bargaining. And the way you bargain is weird. You either bargain with yourself in a sense like, well, if I do this, maybe I won't hurt. Or if I do this, maybe I can just forget about this circumstance. Or if I do this, maybe it'll feel like this person is still here. Or if I had only done these things, maybe things would be different. Or sometimes it's, people even bargaining for things that are obviously not going to happen, but I would only do this to have this time back with this person, or I would trade my life for theirs if I could. But there's always this sense of some type of exchange, and it's that attempt to feel power in a powerless situation. It's the desire I want to have some type of control over what I'm experiencing. Then people move into depression, since they feel that when they finally recognize there is no control and no power, then they move into a depressive state of, well, this is just the way things are and I'm sad. But in between these entire experiences, you jump back and forth. So you can be in denial, move into anger, go into bargaining, then go right back to denial again, and then go back to anger.
You could be at acceptance and then go back to denial.
Yes.
I mean, I've been there several
Yes.
times. I mean, and again, I know this is kind of a given, but death is not the only thing that you can grieve over.
Oh,
you can
absolutely
grieve over
not.
a diagnosis. You can grieve over a separation or divorce. You can grieve over the loss of a friend. Like, even if someone is toxic, I'm going to use the quotations here. Everybody knows what I mean by that. Even if somebody is not good for you in your life, letting go of that person can cause a lot of grief.
Yes. So yeah,
So-
grief is not just death. That is absolutely true. And I work with a lot of people who have been through relationship breakups, and when they start recognizing these things as grief, it helps them to recognize what it is they're experiencing and what they're going through. The loss of an expectation that you had for your life
Yes, yeah.
can be a grief process. So there's nothing that says that it has to be just related to death, but death is where we see it the most profound
Yes,
most of the time.
It's one of our, deepest things that we feel. The part of the deepest grief that we can feel is that permanent loss of someone that we care about.
Yeah, and I think just a theory of mine. I think the reason that the grief process, especially when it's somebody close to you or something that was really close to you that you've lost, is so profound, is because the more close something is to you or someone, the more tied in it is with your neural net in your brain. So, we've talked about before that your brain has a neural net. This net has all these, your experiences, information, it's all tied in together. And through the process of association, when we associate something with another thing, those two things are tied together within your mind,
Yeah.
within your neurons. And so you take an individual or an experience that's been in your life for a long period of time, the more tied in it is with other experiences in your life too. And when that's gone, your brain has to change its wiring all of a sudden because it's like, okay, new information, that thing or that person is no longer here. I cannot think like they are, so I have to rewire. And that the more neural connections you have wired together, the more that have to rewire. And that process has got to be painful.
It's painful and takes a long time.
And takes a lot of energy. I think that's why it wears you down so much. And the brain is trying to resist that much change all at once, but it knows that it has to do it too. So there's this process of resisting the change, but also having to have it. And it's just physically demanding on your body to use that much energy to rewire everything that's been so closely tied in and changing the frame of reference that you have for your life. Because if something was very heavily tied in, it's one of your major frames of reference. You use it to make decisions even though you don't know you use it to make decisions because it's so tightly tied in, you can't help but use it to make decisions.
Yeah, it's like one of those automations, automatic things that you do automatically.
Right.
So when that automatic thing is gone and you have to stop and be like, oh, can't do that automatic anymore. And that's the total process of changing that gravel road to a superhighway. It's that same process of changing the way that you think about certain situations. So like if it was a person and somebody really close to you, somebody that you used to go and tell everything, right? And that person was a big support for you. You're going to feel something happens, you want to go to that person and you feel that loss because that person's not there. So you have to figure out a way to somebody else to be that person for you or how to deal with certain things on your own. And you have to figure out how you're going to get around that loss, whether it's a person or thing.
Yeah. So you have to readjust your whole physiological experience. And so you the way you're improving in grief is, the best I can tell is you visit the earlier stages less. So denial happens less, anger happens less, bargaining happens less. And so you spend less time in those phases and more time in these higher phases until you basically just experience acceptance with maybe momentary experiences of depression on times that remind you of that person, or like certain times of year, things like that. But you just experience that less and less until you finally reach full acceptance. What happens though to a lot of people is they get stuck in some of these stages. So they get in part of one of the processes where it's like, this is where I'm progressed to, and this is where I've been spending the primary amount of time. And that's usually either anger or depression. Most people don't seem to get stuck in bargaining from what I've seen, and they don't seem to get stuck in denial. They still express parts of denial, but they don't seem to be primarily stuck there. They're either stuck in anger, I'm mad at myself, I'm mad at the world, I'm mad at God, I'm mad at something, or they're stuck in depression,
where they've realized that they don't have any control. So the anger is still trying to get control. The depression is where they realize they don't have any control and they've just pretty much given up at that point.
Yeah, they've given up. And,
emotionally.
Yeah, and some people have blocking beliefs that get in their way too. A lot of people, when it comes to loss of something, especially something very important, they feel guilty if they start to lose the emotional hurt that's connected to that experience. They're like, I'm supposed to hurt related to this, aren't I? Like if I lose somebody.
Right, like if it doesn't hurt, then they didn't love them, or they didn't care as much, or that they're no longer connected to that person if they don't have that pain anymore.
Yeah, it's like the pain is the connection, and that's the final connection they have. And losing that pain to them is like, if I lose that, I'm not going to have anything else connecting me to them. Or if I lose that, then it means somehow I'm disrespecting the memory or the experience. And so I'm supposed to carry hurt with
Yeah.
me. You know, and I've listened to people that are even like, you know, in religion that say that, like, yeah, I know God has it. I know, like, either God has dealt with this situation or has forgiven me or whatever the circumstance is, but I won't let go of it.
Well, and I'm just going to say, I know I've said this before, but my preacher's wife told me one time, because I said that exact thing to her right after my dad passed away. And she told me, she said, if God has forgiven you for it and you're saying you won't forgive yourself for it, then you're saying that God's forgiveness isn't enough. And whoa, I mean, that kind of makes you be like, okay, take a step back from that. And so if you were in that position today, think about it that way, because that really helped me to be able to anytime I would start having those thoughts
Of guilt.
then I would be like, okay, well, this is me saying that this greater plan is not enough for me, that God's forgiveness is not enough for me.
Yeah,
and
and so
that, I don't want to be like that.
yeah, and so if you take things from that perspective, that is one methodology of looking at it. And even if you're not a person of faith, other things that you have to look at, and these are things that you hear so much they almost sound cheesy, but they really do mean something to somebody. Is like the idea of, would that other person want you to have this experience?
Right.
So if they're gone, would they want you to feel sad for them all the time? Would they want you to stay in a state of grief, or would they want you to move on? And I know that you hear that said a lot, but it actually is very profound to somebody
Yeah.
who's having that experience. Or if somebody is mourning an experience, there are times where people are afraid to let go of that mourning because they're afraid they'll move on, and they're afraid if they move on, they're going to have this experience again. So they're like, I'm going to move on. I'm going to attach to some other experience, and then I'm going to lose that. And so when I lose that, I'm going to be right back where I am right now. So why don't I just save myself all the trouble and just stay here?
Yeah.
And just be in this state of hopelessness because I don't want to go through all that again and get my hopes up.
Some people also do that because they're afraid they'll succeed.
Yes, well, that's true, too. People have a deep fear of success in many cases. So we get this sense of the sadness part, I think, underlies all of this experience. There is sadness in every bit of this. There's sadness and denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and even there's a bit of sadness and acceptance. There's part of it, you know, when people start to really accept something,
Yeah.
where you just kind of get that sad resignation of, this is the way things are, isn't it?
Yeah, I can relate a lot to that. Recently, I did a EMDR session and got through a really big trauma for me. My uncle David passing away when I was 8 years old. He was 14 when I was born, so he was like a big brother to me. He was like my best friend. And so when he passed away suddenly at the age of 21, it left a huge trauma mark on me. And recently I worked through that, and I realized that that pain was something that I was holding on to help keep me connected to him. And that a lot of letting go of that is kind of sad, because I don't have that deep emotional connection to his memory anymore. But at the same time, I still do have deep emotional connections with his memory. It's just not that loss, grief memory. So it's not that traumatic, over dramatic, deep emotional connection of PTSD symptoms, right? It's which is not healthy. It's more of a remembering him as he was in our times together, and that memory and the love that he had with me. And I do remember how sad I was when he passed away, but it doesn't affect me as much as it did anymore. And even though I know that that's healthy, there's still that element of sadness to it.
Sure. Well, and so that is one of the things that people are scared to find out, is if I let go of the trauma or the pain and I'm able to move past that, will I be able to connect with the old memories again? And what happens when people are in the grief cycle is you connect with the old memories, and then it reminds you of the trauma of the loss.
Yeah.
And so even the old good memories become painful.
Yes.
So when you work on removing the pain related to the loss, then you can access the old memories and access some of the emotions connected to them without it heavily triggering the
Right.
sense of loss.
You might still cry, but it might be those happy tears, or it might be tears of sadness and thinking back, but it's not going to be this PTSD version of it, which is this overly dramatic, panicky, where it affects your everyday life type things.
Right. Absolutely. So I think that's a good wrap up of the grief cycle and sadness. I don't think we missed anything. Do you? We got pretty well the basic overview. Okay. If you're dealing with grief or you're having experiences like you feel stuck in the grief cycle, therapy is absolutely helpful, and we're definitely here to help with that. We're using EMDR a lot more. I know I have been. I find it to be incredibly effective for dealing with grief and loss. And it's a less invasive experience, so it's a little bit easier on people to who are experiencing grief, because a lot of times talk therapy can be really emotionally painful. So if you're looking for counseling services, you can reach out to us at Affinity Counseling on Facebook, AFFINITY, or you can contact us in our Arkansas office at 870-324-5122, or our Missouri location at 573-840-0440, or you can sign up with us at counselingwithaffinity.com.
All right. And again, a lovely pause. We are giving away our depression tracker this month. You can sign up for our newsletter at a lovely pause, PAUSE.com, or on our Facebook page. You can click the sign up button. If you were already signed up for our list, then your depression tracker should be in your email this morning. So give that a check out, and you can see what we're going to be doing for this next few months.
Yeah.
And then don't forget about our raffle. $200 worth of meat, your choice, from Garcia's Meats.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.